Imagine for a second a biological event that happens to you every single day. Your body goes completely limp. Your muscles lose all their tension, effectively leaving you paralyzed. You can't run, you can't fight, you can't even move your arms. But at that exact same moment, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. It starts hallucinating wildly, creating vivid, immersive, alternate realities, processing intense emotions and rewriting your internal hard drive. If this were a medical emergency, you'd be terrified. But this isn't an emergency, it's just Tuesday night.
It really is one of the most bizarre and brilliant paradoxes of human physiology. We spend roughly a third of our lives doing this, yet the vast majority of people treat it like a simple off switch. You get into bed, you power down, and you wake up. But behind the scenes, you are undergoing a highly orchestrated, deeply complex neurological sequence. And the phase you just described, where the mind is blazing with activity while the body is locked in a state of temporary paralysis, is arguably the most fascinating part of the entire cycle.
Right, we're talking about REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep. I think most people have heard the term, usually in the context of dreaming. But the actual mechanics of it, especially this built-in paralysis, which is clinically known as rematonia, are rarely talked about. It sounds almost like a glitch in the matrix. Why would evolution design a system where our brains are essentially sprinting while our bodies are strapped to the bed?
To understand that, you have to look at what would happen if that system failed. During REM sleep, your brain waves are incredibly fast and desynchronized. If you looked at an EEG scan of someone in deep REM, their brain activity looks shockingly similar to someone who is wide awake and solving a complex puzzle. You are experiencing highly immersive, emotional, and physical simulations. You're running, you're flying, you're fighting off threats. Now, imagine if your motor cortex was still connected to your limbs while you were dreaming about fighting a bear.
I'm guessing my nightstand wouldn't survive the night.
Exactly, and neither would you. Without rematonia, we would physically act out every single motion we dream about. The brain actively sends inhibitory signals down the spinal cord to essentially sever the connection between your active mind and your voluntary muscles. It's a brilliant, elegant safety mechanism. When this system breaks down, a condition known as REM sleep behavior disorder, people do exactly what you joked about. They leap out of bed, they punch, they kick, they can severely injure themselves or their partners. So, the paralysis isn't a glitch. It's a neurological straitjacket that keeps you safe while your brain goes to work.
That is incredible. It's like putting a car in neutral while you rev the engine to the red line. The engine is doing all the work, but the wheels aren't moving. So if the body is in neutral, what exactly is the engine doing? Because for a long time, the consensus seemed to be that dreams were just random neurological noise, just static left over from the day. But modern neuroscience paints a very different picture, doesn't it?
It paints a profoundly different picture. We now know that REM sleep is essentially the brain's memory factory and emotional processing plant. It's not passive rest, it is highly active maintenance. Throughout the day, you are bombarded with information, conversations, emotions, and new skills. All of that is stored in a sort of short-term holding area. During sleep, and particularly during REM, your brain reviews that footage. It strengthens the neural connections that matter, and, just as importantly, it prunes away the connections that don't.
So it's like a night shift IT department coming in to organize the files, delete the spam, and back up the critical data to the main server.
That's a perfect analogy. And it goes even deeper than just filing facts. REM sleep is intimately tied to emotional regulation. When you process a difficult or traumatic memory during REM sleep, the brain actually strips away the visceral, raw emotion attached to that memory. It allows you to remember the event without feeling the crushing anxiety associated with it. It's a form of overnight biological therapy. When you wake up feeling like a problem isn't as bad as it seemed the night before, that is REM sleep doing its job.
Which brings up a really unsettling thought. If REM sleep is our overnight therapy, our emotional regulator, and our memory consolidator, what happens when we start cutting it short? Because we are living in a society that is chronically sleep deprived. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We doom scroll in bed. We have a few glasses of wine to wind down. We set early alarms to hit the gym. We are constantly chipping away at our sleep time.
And the cost of that is staggering. When you truncate your sleep, you aren't just losing rest. You are specifically amputating your REM sleep because the longest and most dense periods of REM occur in the final hours of the morning. If you normally sleep 8 hours, but you force yourself to wake up after 6, you haven't just lost 25% of your total sleep. You might have lost 60 to 70% of your REM sleep.
Wow, so you're essentially firing the IT department right before they run the most important backups.
Precisely. And the symptoms of that are exactly what you see in modern society. Brain fog, emotional volatility, impaired learning, a complete lack of creativity, and heightened anxiety. People wonder why they feel so brittle, why they snap at minor inconveniences, or why they can't seem to hold on to new information. They blame their diet, their jobs, or their age. But very often, it's a structural failure in their sleep. Their brain hasn't been given the time to organize the chaos of the previous day.
That makes me think about the societal implications of this. We have millions of people operating heavy machinery, making massive financial decisions, and raising children, all while running on brains that haven't been properly pruned or emotionally recalibrated. It's like an entire culture walking around with full cache memory, wondering why the system is crashing. And I think a lot of people trick themselves. They say, well, I was in bed for 7 hours, so I should be fine. But quantity and quality are two entirely different animals here.
Absolutely. The architecture of your sleep matters just as much, if not more, than the duration. You mentioned having a glass of wine to wind down earlier. Alcohol is a classic example of something that destroys sleep architecture. It might help you lose consciousness faster, but it acts as a massive suppressor of REM sleep. Your brain gets knocked out, but it doesn't get to do its maintenance work. Sleep fragmentation from stress or late-night blue light exposure does the exact same thing. You might clock 7 hours of unconsciousness, but biologically, you are starving.
So, how do we fix a problem we can't even see? When you're asleep, you're the worst possible judge of how well you're sleeping. This seems to be where the explosion of wearable technology comes into play. We now have rings, watches, and bands that track everything from heart rate variability to temperature, claiming to tell us exactly how much REM sleep we got. But is having all this data actually solving the problem?
That is the million-dollar question. Wearables have done a fantastic job of bringing sleep architecture into the public consciousness. Being able to estimate your REM cycles, track your sleep fragmentation, and monitor your resting heart rate overnight is incredibly powerful. But raw data is just noise if you don't know what to do with it. Staring at a graph that says you only got 45 minutes of REM sleep might just give you more anxiety, which ironically ruins your sleep the next night.
The classic self-fulfilling prophecy of sleep tracking. I've definitely been there, waking up, checking an app, and letting an algorithm tell me I'm supposed to feel exhausted today.
Exactly, and that's the critical pivot we need to make in health technology. The future isn't just about gathering more data, it's about intelligent interpretation. It's about looking at the patterns. If your wearable shows a drop in REM sleep and a spike in resting heart rate, the real value is in understanding what drove that change. Was it a late meal? Was it lingering stress? Was it a disruption in your circadian rhythm? Interpretation turns data into actionable behavioral changes. Because at the end of the day, the technology itself doesn't improve your health. It merely holds up a mirror.
That is such a profound way to look at it. The wearable doesn't heal you, it just translates the language your nervous system is speaking. And what a complex language it is. It really brings us full circle to the sheer wonder of the human body. We spend our days trying to optimize our lives, but the ultimate optimization protocol is already hard-coded into our biology.
It is. Protecting your sleep is arguably the single most powerful investment you can make in your cognitive longevity, your emotional resilience, and your physical health. We have to stop viewing sleep as a passive state of doing nothing. It is the most active, vital, and protective neurological process we possess.
It's a complete paradigm shift. Sleep isn't the tax we pay for being awake, it's the foundation that makes being awake possible. So tonight, when your body goes heavy and that temporary paralysis sets in, just remember, your brain isn't shutting down. It's just clocking in for the night shift, organizing your memories, and preparing you for whatever tomorrow brings. What will your brain build tonight?